Hey everybody, welcome back. Thanks for taking the time to come check out Hello Good Game. If this is your first time here, make sure to subscribe to the channel for your chance to win up to 500,000 gems, 500,000 gems just for subscribing to our YouTube channel. It's as easy as that. Today we are looking at Theros Beyond Death mechanics. We've got Escape, we have Devotion, and we have Constellation. Sagas as well. We're going to talk about that a little bit at the end. Even though it's not a mechanic, it is still a new set of cards that we're going to be looking at. So what is a mechanic? A mechanic is a card ability that can be used on multiple cards within a set. So that's why they call them mechanics. There is no reference to them in the rule guide. It's simply a way to explain the design of the cards. So every set is going to have different mechanics, and they generally tie in together to make a theme that integrates with the set. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the information straight from the horse's mouth. This is an article by Watsy, Theros Beyond Death Mechanics by Matt Tabak. Thank you so much for putting this article and information together for all of us to go through and digest before the set comes out. Most appreciative. And hopefully you guys don't mind my terrible grammar and reading skills. Let's get into it. Every fairy tale eventually comes to an end, and so our adventurers move on to the next world. It's a familiar world, an enchanting starscape under the watchful eyes of an inscrutable pantheon. Buckle up, everybody. We're headed back to Theros. Let's look at the new and returning mechanics that await us. So again, some of these mechanics like Constellation are going to be new, but others like Devotion are of a returning nature. First on our list is Escape. And again, I'm going to have the article link posted for you guys, so you can go ahead and watch the video if you want. Up until now, there's been a pretty reliable barrier between the world and the underworld. Beings that died tended to stay dead, but this set is called Theros Beyond Death after all, and that barrier isn't what it used to be. This new porous afterlife sets the stage nicely for Escape, a new keyword that gives the dead another chance at life. If a card with Escape is in your graveyard, you can cast it. Escape provides you with an alternative cost with two components: the amount of mana you'll have to pay and the number of other cards you'll have to exile from your graveyard. Escape doesn't change when you cast the spell. Instants with Escape are good to go anytime. Other card types can only be cast during your main phase when the stack is empty. Casting a spell using Escape doesn't change any of its normal rules for casting a spell. The spell goes on the stack, it can be countered or otherwise responded to. Its converted mana cost does not change. It is always based on the original mana cost, not the Escape cost. When an instant or sorcery spell with Escape resolves or is countered or otherwise leaves the stack, it returns to its owner's graveyard. Permanent spells with Escape that resolve head to the battlefield, but if they die later, will be sent back to the graveyard. Don't tell Erebos, but cards can escape over and over again throughout the game as long as you have enough cards to exile and the mana to spare. A few creature cards, like the one we're about to talk about, have abilities that say when they escape, they come in with a number of 1/1 counters on them. This just means that if you cast them from your graveyard using the Escape ability, they'll enter the battlefield with that many 1/1 counters. So let's scroll back up here and take a look at Underworld Rage Hound. So this is a creature elemental hound, cost 2, and he's a 3/1. He attacks each combat if able. And then to the juicy part, he has Escape for 4, and then we're exiling 3 cards from our graveyard, and he's going to come in with a 1/1 counter on it. So just to make sure you guys all understand this, it's a creature that we're going to be able to play multiple times from our graveyard as long as he remains there. Which is really cool. That means if it gets removed, then you're not going to be out of creatures. You're still going to be able to play those later on. The Escape cost won't go up. So if you cast it a second time and a third time, it's still only ever going to stay at its original cost. For this card will be 4. So I think that's pretty self-explanatory, right? We do have other options as well. Escape instances are going to be my favorite because you're going to be able to play those at any point. So that's really powerful. Let's move on to Devotion. The gods of Theros, much like the gods of countless other worlds, enjoy the simple things in life. They really want to be adored, loved, worshipped, respected, feared, revered, hallowed, and generally thought of nice by the populace. They're all about devotion, which makes the devotion mechanic a natural fit for Theros Beyond Death. Your devotion color is equal to the number of mana symbols of that color among permanents you control. Abilities that refer to your devotion to a color use that number in a variety of ways. For example, Daxos of the Sun uses it to define his toughness, and you'll see here a star where his toughness is. Daxos' toughness is equal to your devotion to white, and then we get a little explanation after it as well. Each planes in the mana cost of permanents you control counts towards your devotion to white. It's as easy as that. And then he has an extra ability tagged onto him that has nothing to do with devotion. But we're going to have mono devotion decks and maybe even some dual colored devotion decks coming to us in Theros. So that's a lot of fun. Moving on. To calculate your devotion to a color, look at the mana cost of all permanents you control. Every mana symbol in those mana costs that is appropriate to color adds one. For example, Daxos has 2 white mana symbols in this mana cost, so controlling Daxos will increase your devotion to white by 2. If an effect refers to your devotion to 2 colors, count every mana symbol that is either of the colors. If there is a hybrid mana symbol that is both colors, count it only once. Generic mana symbols such as 0, 1, 2, so on, and X, anything that's gray, a colorless mana, will not count towards your devotion of any color. Daxos' toughness is constantly updated as your devotion to white changes, but if resolving a spell or ability refers to your devotion to a color, you calculate that devotion one time as the spell or ability is resolving. For example, check out Cloyos Design. The bonus is calculated as the design revolves. This means that anything that happened in response could cause you to get a different bonus than you were expecting. Once the spell resolves, it won't matter if your devotion to green changes, the bonus won't change. So, creatures you control get plus X until end of turn, where X is your devotion to green. Each green in the mana cost of permanents you control counts towards your devotion to green. So, if your opponent removes your creatures before the spell resolves, that's going to lower your devotion, right? And also, if you could maybe play enchantments with flash or something before this resolves, that will also affect your devotion because it's going to take your devotion as the spell resolves. That's what that means. Moving on to Constellation. Our first foray to Theros a few years ago revealed much about Nyx, the starry realm of the gods. The pantheon is connected to enchantments, and returning ability word Constellation rewards you for making enchantments the stars of your deck. As an ability word, Constellation does not have specific rules, meaning it's used to shine some starlights on abilities that trigger whenever an enchantment enters the battlefield under your control. Each Constellation bonus effect is different, so we're going to have to really pay attention to these individual cards. If we look at Citizen Champion, this is a creature for 3. It's a 1/3. It has Constellation, so let's take a look at it. Whenever an enchantment enters the battlefield, which all Constellations are going to start this way, under your control, put a 1/1 counter on the champion and then draw a card. So the second part here, put a 1/1 counter on Citizen Champion and draw a card. This is the unique ability tied to Citizen Champion. It doesn't matter if the enchantment also has other card types. For example, if an enchantment creature enters the battlefield under your control, Constellation abilities will still trigger. However, an aura spell that doesn't resolve, perhaps because it becomes the target of like a counterspell in response, won't enter the battlefield, and it won't cause Constellation to enter abilities to trigger. So if your card, your enchantment does not enter the battlefield, it's not going to cause it to trigger, because as we see, when it enters the battlefield, so it needs to not only be cast, but it needs to enter the battlefield to buff that up. And lastly, we have Sagas. We've seen this in Dominaria. They were OP, History of Benalia, am I right? If you're not familiar with Sagas, here's how they work. Each saga has a number of chapters, usually 3, but they could be more and longer. Each with an associated ability. The abilities typically play out 1 per turn until the story is complete and you sacrifice it. It is just like the library, but with fewer late fees and more sacrificing and bloodshed. You keep track of what chapter you're on using lore counters. Sagas enter the battlefield with a lore counter on them. As your pre-combat main phase begins, meaning just after you draw a card for the turn, you add 1 more lore counter to each saga you control. Adding lore counters in either of these ways doesn't use the stack. Anytime a saga you control gets a lore counter, the corresponding chapter ability triggers. This means the chapter 1 ability triggers when it enters the battlefield, and when you go to your first phase after that, when you get your second lore counter, the second chapter will trigger, and so on and so forth. In most cases, the chapter 2 ability will trigger on your next turn, then the chapter 3 on your subsequent turn, so on and so on. Chapter abilities use the stack and can be responded to. If a chapter ability requires a target and no legal target is available, the chapter ability won't do anything. Once the last chapter ability has triggered and left the stack by resolving, by being countered, or in any other way, the saga's controller sacrifices it. That is it. Let's take a look at the saga so we can really wrap our minds around that. So as this Saga enters the battlefield, after your draw step, add a low counter to it, right? Sacrifice after 3. So that basically explains all of that for us on the card. Perfect. Phase 1, gain control of target creature for as long as this remains on the battlefield. Yes, please. And then after you draw a card on your next turn, until your next turn, creatures your opponent controls attack each combat if able. So you're going to play your turn, pass your turn. That means all your opponent's creatures are going to attack you. And then on turn 3, each tapped creature deals combat damage to itself equal to its power, because all of his creatures would have attacked. They're all going to be tapped, and now they're all going to kill themselves on turn 3. So that's really, really cool. And then you're going to sacrifice it after that. It's as easy as that. You could bounce enchantments with the fairy, bring it back to the field. All sorts of fun stuff, right? So that is the mechanics in a nutshell. If you found value within this video, make sure to reach out in the comments and let me know if you're looking forward to seeing more of these videos breaking down basic components for beginners. Obviously, I'm more than happy to create them. I just want to know that there is a place and an audience for them. With that all being said, thanks for watching. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Get your name entered into that gem giveaway. We are literally just rolling over 1,000 subscribers, so I have a ton of gems to give away this weekend. You can also subscribe to our Twitch channel. Our tier 1 subscribers are going to be entered in to win the Samsung Chromebook. With that all being said, I do have one last thing to go over for our gem giveaway participants. One last thing before I go, you guys. If you really are interested in winning these gems, there is one thing I need from you guys. Whether you've subscribed or not at this point, you need to make sure your subscription is set to public. Otherwise, I won't be able to see you as a subscriber. You're strictly going to be a number and not a name. And I need to enter names into the giveaway to make sure that we're getting the gems to you guys, right? So it's as easy as clicking on your profile here up on the top right. You're going to go down to settings right here. That's that gearbox. You can go over to the left where it says privacy. Click on privacy. And then it's going to say here, keep all my playlists private. Keep all my subscriptions private. So you're not going to want to keep your subscriptions private. You're going to want to keep those public. So make sure that's turned off so that I can see that you're subscribed to me and you're going to be entered in to our gem giveaway. We are at like $9.95, so we've got room for 5 more subscribers. If you're watching this and I'm still one under 1,000, subscribe immediately. Even if you're over 1,000, make sure to subscribe because our next gem giveaway is going to trigger at 10,000. So yeah, you're early to the show, but it's better to be early than late because you'll see you were late to this one and it was a little bit of a scramble and maybe you didn't make it, right? So get your name in there. It's as easy as that. We're quickly growing. Like I said, I'm really looking forward to playing Magic all 2020 with you guys, learning, exploring, and improving, most importantly, right? So with this all being said, thank you guys for watching so much. I appreciate each and every one of you, and I hope to see you tomorrow on our Magic the Gathering Theros Beyond Death pre-release event. Wizards of the Coast was nice enough to invite us to that, so we get to be part of the pre-release streamer event. So be sure to check us out on Twitch, 6 a.m. PST, and we'll probably be live all day creating YouTube content. It's going to be banging, so we'll see you then.